The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the City of Plant City virtual planning board meeting. I'm stressing the word virtual because this is the first time we've tried that. Before I even begin, I want to thank a lot of people. I want to thank all of you for being on your phones. We're going to do a roll call in a few minutes to verify. But I also want to thank the staff that using the IT involved. David is here, and Kim Buckman is nearby as well. So I'll ask you at the end of the meeting to discuss how this format works, and it should be interesting. But I think it's important that we keep the economy revived again, or start reviving the economy. So thank you for your patience on this. I'd like to call the roll. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair. Chair Boone?
Here.
Board Member Barnes?
I'm here.
Board Member Rodwell? Board Member Rodwell? Board Member Carr? Board Member Carr? Board Member Carr, if you can hear me, you'll need to unmute your microphone. Thank you.
I'm present. I'm present.
Thank you. Board Member Grigger?
Here.
Board Member Jones?
I'm present.
Board Member Jones, are you present?
Yes, I'm present.
Thank you. Chair,
You didn't call Nick first.
Board Member Thurston?
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. All present.
Thank you. First,
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
making the motion or seconding the motion. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Jeremy Burns to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Burns to approve. Is there a second for the motion?
Bonnie Carson, motion.
I'm not sure I understood. That was Bonnie Carr? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes? All right, we'll call for a roll call to approve the minutes. The clerk will call out your name, ask for your approval. Please proceed, Madam Clerk.
Chair Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Burris,
Here. Yes.
Board Member Rodwell, Board Member
Yes.
Board Member Griggs,
Yes.
Board Member Jones,
Yes.
Board Member Thurston.
Yes.
Okay, you said the vote.
Thank you. Minutes are approved 6-0. The next order of business is public comments. Public comments for this meeting are accepted by electronic submission or mail to the city clerk, and any public comments received are disseminated to the planning board electronically prior to the start of the meeting for review and inclusion into this meeting's official record. After the deadline, we did not receive any public comments, so we will move on to new business. First order of business is legislative hearings, and the first case is PC/CPA 20-03, Future Land Plan Amendment. This is a public hearing. I understand we have Mr. Hudson, that's Mark Hudson, from the Planning Commission with us to present this item on behalf of the Planning Commission. Mr. Hudson, please state your name and address for the record. You may proceed at any time at your convenience. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, this is Mark Hudson with the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, 601 East Kennedy Boulevard, Tampa, Florida, County Center, 18th floor. The Planning Commission is in the process of processing 4 plan amendments for the City of Plant City, 2 of which are to be heard today by the Planning Board. If I could have my first PowerPoint, please. This first plan amendment is designated PCCPA 20-03. You can see the slide in front of you.
I don't know. Click your web link again.
Can you hear me?
Can you just pause for a moment? We're going to try to make some adjustments because the quality of your voice, Mark, is a little garbled.
We're having some technical difficulties. Can you, everybody please hold just one moment. Thank you.
There you go.
Nothing's happening now.
Let me know when you want me to test it again.
Okay, this is an audio thing. Can the board members hear me?
This is
Yes.
Jeremy
Yes.
Burris.
Yes.
Is the quality of audio better? Everybody hear us clearer now?
Yes.
Terry.
Okay. All right, we're going to continue on. Mr. Hudson? I'm going to go back
Can
to
the
your
board
first
members
slide
hear me
and
more
start
clearly?
again.
Yes.
Can the board members hear me more clearly?
Yes.
Okay, I will proceed then. Again, just as a recap, we are processing 4 plan amendments for the City of Plant City this cycle, 2 of which are to be heard this morning. The first is PC CPA 20-03. If I could have the next slide. This shows you the general location of this plan amendment. It is south of East Knights Griffin Road, west of Charlie Taylor Road, north of Midway Road, east of Fraser Lane. Again, it's identified as PC CPA 20-03. If I could have the next slide. This is an aerial of the plan amendment site. The area affected is surrounded by the dashed lavender line. It is part of the development better known as Vieira. And you can see it is at the southwest corner of East Knights Griffin Road and Charlie Taylor Road. Next slide. By way of a little bit of background, it is privately initiated, almost 90 acres. The applicant has requested to go from mixed residential, commercial, residential 4, and natural preservation to mixed use residential commercial. Next slide. This is the land use map as it stands today. You can see the affected area with the dashed black line. You can see the 3 different land use plan categories that are currently within that plan amendment area. About 30 acres of the area already has the requested land use, mixed use residential commercial. The applicant wishes to enlarge this mixed use activity center. Currently, that would basically involve an additional 60 acres, primarily residential 4, converting to mixed use residential commercial. Next slide. If approved by the City Commission, this is how the future land use map would change. The area within the plan amendment boundaries would become entirely mixed use residential commercial, indicated by the lavender color. Next slide. I'm going to show you some photographs of the site and also adjacent areas to give you a little idea of the character of the area as it stands today. This is a little bit better aerial looking north at East Knights Griffin Road and Charlie Taylor Road. Next slide. And I drove around and took some photographs of some of the surrounding areas and also used some Google Maps. This is looking west at East Knights Griffin Road, Charlie Taylor Road. Next slide. Knights Griffin Road towards the plan amendment site. Next slide. This is looking north on Charlie Taylor Road. Again, you see that primarily the area of the plan amendment is undeveloped currently. The surrounding areas are predominantly in agricultural use and large lot, single family residential development. Next slide. Our staff looked at the plan amendment based on theoretical build-outs. Based on its existing land uses today, the site, which is almost 90 acres, can be considered for up to 531 dwelling units and 164,000 square feet of commercial office uses. If this plan amendment was ultimately approved by the City Commission, That would rise to 917 dwelling units and 480,000 square feet of commercial office uses, or some combination thereof. If I could have the next slide, please. Our staff did review this Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. In particular, we looked at several areas within that plan. The full policies, the full goals, objectives, and policies are included in your packets. However, just to note that we looked closely at neighborhood conservation, community development, enhanced hometown charm. I could have the next slide. We also looked at provisions concerning growth management, the provision of public facilities, and housing. We felt that it was consistent with those goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. We also asked for outside agency comments. Particularly, we received some concerning school concurrency and also transportation analysis, which will be conducted at later stages, both with the school district and Plant City staff and Hillsborough County staff. If I could have the next slide. To give you a little bit of idea of the timeline this plan amendment is being processed under, this is the first opportunity for a public hearing with the planning board this morning. It will also be heard with the planning commission on July 13th. That's at 5:30 in the evening. I expect that to be a virtual meeting, and anyone who would like to participate, feel free to contact me. Again, my name is Mark Hudson, and my email is hudsonm@plancom.org. But you could go to our website, planhillsborough.org, and find all the information. And we expect to have a transmittal hearing with the City Commission on August 10th. And with that, I lost my last slide. Anyway, with that, we would recommend the planning board recommend to the City Commission to find this plan amendment consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation. I stand for any questions. Also, I understand the applicant has a presentation that may also give further detail to their ultimate proposal. And with that, I open it up to any questions you may have of myself.
Chair, this is Bonnie.
I will ask board members if they have any questions for Mr. Hudson. If you please identify yourself when you raise your question. Board members, do you have any questions for Mr. Hudson?
This is Bonnie Carr. I have a question. I noticed that part of the amendment, it looks like it eliminates the preservation part, the zoning. I was wondering, is that the water funds, or what is that preservation piece? And, you know, is that actually going to be preserved?
It has a rather long, this is Mark Hudson again responding. It has a little bit of a long history. Our staff is trying. Yes.
Mark, we have difficulty understanding Bonnie's questions. Could you please restate it before you give your answer? Mark, Mr. Hudson, did you hear me?
Yes, you want Bonnie to restate the question?
Well, if you would restate it before you answer it.
Okay.
I'm not really sure that we understood the question.
Okay. I believe the question Ms. Carr is asking is, what is the effect on removing the natural preservation designation from the future land use?
That's correct.
It's a little bit of a long answer. The applicant really had no desire to do that. However, we are trying to clean up Plant City's future land use map. I can give a long answer, but the short answer is these areas will continue to be protected by the rules and regulations, not only Plant City, but by the Hillsborough County Environmental Protection Commission. Give in 2005, then Department of Community Affairs asked for all natural preservation areas to be shown on our future land use map. Our staff, commission staff, did not think that was appropriate to be on that particular map because these wetland areas were neither delineated, identified, we only used air photo interpretation. So these wetlands, you know, they may be twice the size that are shown on the map, or at a different location, or don't exist at all. And we have other mechanisms to ensure that these areas are protected. And therefore, as these map amendments come in, we try to clean that up over time. In reality, the impacts as far as the protection of those resources are not impacted by the action. I hope that gives you a brief explanation of why that is occurring.
Yes, it does. Thank you. This is Bonnie Carr.
Mr. Chairman, speaking for a moment, we've made some technical changes here in the City Hall. It may cause delays or echoes against, but it allows us to hear you all out there, better than what we were hearing. So if you have any problem with echoes or please let me know. So right now, I'm going to ask if any other board members have a question. When you speak up, please identify yourself. Thank you.
This is Jeremy Burris, board member Jeremy Burris. Whoever just spoke, I could not hear you whatsoever. I don't know if you got to get a microphone closer to you. This is board member Jeremy Burris. I cannot hear anything you just said.
Can you hear? Well, Mark, would you give a test message? We just made another change here. Mark, would you just do a test message? I want to see if Jeremy Burris can hear you.
Yeah. This is Mark Hudson with the Hillsborough County Planning Commission.
I could hear Mark, but who just spoke two moments ago, I couldn't hear, but I can hear you now as you're closer to the mic. Thank you.
Can hear you now. Can you hear me now, Jeremy?
Yes, sir, I can. I don't know who this is, but yes, I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know who I am, so I'm sitting here.
Hey, Art, yes, I can hear you now, Art. Yes, Art, I can hear you now. Thank you.
I know, Jeremy. I recognize your voice. Okay, well, thank you for making that adjustment. Is there anyone out there that has trouble hearing? By the way, I do have my cell phone open, so you could text me privately if you if you just can't communicate any other way. So could we go through a quick roll call? I want to see if everyone out there is hearing this adequately. So the clerk's going to call your name, and if you would please acknowledge if you're hearing this conversation properly. Madam Clerk, would you begin a call?
Yeah. Board Member Burris.
Here.
Board Member Rodwell. Board Member Carr.
Here.
Board Member Driggers.
Here.
Board Member Jones.
I am here.
Board Member Thurston.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and everybody can hear me okay?
Yes, and when Art made that adjustment, I think that resolved that challenge. Heard him much more clearly the second time he spoke.
Agreed.
Yes, this is Jason Jones. It is much better. The only thing I would ask is if you're not speaking, if we could mute some people. I'm still getting some feedback from people that aren't muted.
Could make it. Is anyone who's dialed in? Do they need? They're out there, unless you want to speak. Yeah. Does anyone wish to have Mark Hudson redo either his presentation or his reply to Bonnie's question? So I'll wait for anyone to speak. And does anyone want a re-over by Mark Hudson? Just say yes if you do. Okay, I think everyone seems satisfied. So let's proceed. Is there any other questions by board members of Mr. Hudson?
This is Jeremy Burris. I have a question.
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
And Art, you're getting background for whatever it's worth. Mr. Hudson, this is Board Member Jeremy Burris. Quick question as I look at your slides. It looks like changing this zoning, I want to make sure I'm looking at this accurately. We're going to go from 531 residential units to 917 just by adjusting that acreage. Is that accurate?
It is a land use change, not a zoning, so I want to make that clear first off. The zoning would be more definitive as far as the actual unit count and square footage. What I'm providing the board is the theoretical build outs of each based on the maximum intensity and density that would be allowed based on that additional acreage.
Okay. So we don't know what they're going to do, but we're just assuming that if we do change this, it could possibly go from 531 to 917, and then our commercial square footage could almost quadruple to 480,000, correct?
That is the theoretical as a PowerPoint, and want to share that with the board of a more definitive of their future plans. But that is the theoretical entitlements that would be garnered if this was approved by the City Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Are there any other questions from board members? Any other questions from board members?
I got one more question for him, Art, if I may.
Please proceed, Mr. Burris.
Mr. Hudson, this is Jeremy Burris again. On the traffic study, we may be too far in this yet, but I just want to make sure I understood. Do we think that Charlie Taylor Road or Midway Road is going to be able to handle the traffic? And maybe I'm getting far ahead of myself, but what type of road restraints are we possibly going to have out in that rural community? What's your thoughts on that, Mark?
Concerning the land use change, we only do a very cursory transportation analysis. The more in-depth analysis will be accompanying the revisions of plan development zoning. So I don't know if how far along that process is with the city, but when that becomes before you, you should have the detailed information concerning the impacts on the adjacent roads.
Yeah, my only concern, Mr. Hudson, is out in that community. It's pretty rural. The roads aren't that wide. And again, I'm not anti-growth whatsoever, but I am concerned in the future that we're going to have quite a bit of homes on North Park Isles coming down Wilder Road. And all these cars off of this potential community, I assume, is going to go down Charlie Taylor Road, but most likely Wilder Road and Midway Road to get to the interstate for, these people probably to get back and forth to work. So I'm very kind of anxious to see what our thought process would be on a traffic study on Midway Road and Wilder Road, not just in conjunction with this community, but the other community that's fixing to be built on Wilder Road also.
City staff may be able to respond a little bit more directly on that concerning what analysis is being done for both North Park Isles and this development as well. I know they are required as part of the plan development rezonings, and usually at that time they coordinate with the county of whatever the necessary improvements need to be. Most of these facilities in the area are county roads versus city roads.
Understood. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. I'll ask, are there any other questions from board members? Any other questions from board members? Okay, let's go back to a little technical matter I mentioned a moment ago. I would prefer that you go straight to David, our IT manager here, if you should have any technical problems, okay? Because I'm going to stop looking at text messages now that everybody seems to be working. David's phone number was in your email, but just in case, I'll give it to you again, 813-703-0361. That's David, 813-703-0361. So if you should get disconnected or something goes wrong, you can't hear volume or anything, follow up with David, not with me, because I'm going to turn off my text messaging. Okay? Last chance. Any other questions for Mr. Hudson from board members? All right, we'll proceed to the public hearing. In the notice for this meeting, the public was advised to contact the city clerk at least 48 hours prior to the public hearing, should anyone wish to speak. Madam City Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Yes, Chair Wood. We have Ms. Diane Chadwick representing the applicant. We also have Mr. Travis Luttrell, Ms. Lanai Luttrell, Ms. Deborah Boynton, Mr. Charles Hollenkamp, and Mr. George Domitian. No other persons have requested to be heard for this public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Chadwick, are you still on the line?
I am, and that's a Ms.
Ms. Chadwick, my apologies.
That is not a problem.
Okay, if you would please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, my name is Diane Chadwick, and I am a planner with Stantec. Our address is 777 South Harbor Island Boulevard, Tampa. And with me today is Truett Gardner as the attorney for the applicant. As you can see from the slide you have in front of you that shows the Varela Plan Development project that was approved in 2015. And I will add in here, a traffic study was approved with this zoning in 2015. So that has been reviewed. And this was a succession off of a Cone Farms plan development application. And both of those which have been on the books probably since 2011, 2013, something like that, approved the 2 mixed-use areas that you see here in the burnt orange color. And the entitlement for those areas was for 345,000 square feet of commercial, 50,000 square feet of office. And I will tell you, we are in the process of amending this PD, which I'll talk about in a minute. Next slide. As Mark explained to you, the lavender color of the mixed use is about 33 acres. It was established back probably 15 or so years ago with the Northeast Master Plan, which envisioned the expansion of the city boundaries and commercial services to not only serve this project, but also to serve the surrounding community. The parcel is long and narrow, and it does, those teal color spots are wetlands. And by the way, we have actually already surveyed the wetlands, so we know they are wetlands. And our expansion is only 56.26 acres. And the sole purpose of this expansion is to accommodate the existing approved commercial entitlements. And as a point of explanation, why you keep hearing about the 89 acres is the original 33 acres was never legally described. And we took the opportunity with this application to go ahead and provide a full legal description of that entire corner. Next slide. This is zoomed in. We have been very busy working on detailed land plans for this site for quite honestly over the last year, and that's why the wetlands have been surveyed. So this clip just zooms in on that corner, and you can see the lighter colored orange is the existing designation. And the darker color is the expansion area of this area. I'm getting some feedback, but hopefully you guys can hear me. So the long narrow piece was supposed to accommodate commercial and residential. And as we got into our detailed land planning, we discovered it really was not of significance to be able to accommodate the entire entitlement that was already approved for this site. So as we looked at how to make that work, we had ended up with an entrance road that was a little further to the west, and that left a gap of the R4 designation, which of course does not allow for commercial uses. So this request is simply to move the line to accommodate the existing entitlements. So the next slide. We understand, as Mark explained to you, the staff has to analyze the full build out as a potential for this site. But as he did explain, you've got to go through a zoning approval in order to take advantage of that. I will remind you, the site has existing entitlements, and you would be required to do a plan development amendment and public hearings before your board if you wanted to increase those entitlements. And to be transparent, we are doing a plan development amendment. It is pending. It's with your staff right now. We're hoping to be in hearings in July if you are open for in-person hearings. And I will tell you that that amendment does not propose any increase above what is already approved for this site as far as any kind of entitlements, commercial, office, or residential. It remains the same. And we would also have a second PD amendment that will come forward after this comp plan amendment is hopefully approved, which would take into account this expanded area. And again, there is no intent to increase the entitlements. So at this point, we'll be available for questions, and we do request 5 minutes of rebuttal time after you have taken citizen comments. And we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chadwick. We're having to play with the mute, unmute buttons here, so there may be delays if everyone would be patient. Does the board members have any questions for Ms. Chadwick? I'll ask twice to be sure. Do board members have any question for Ms. Chadwick? Okay, hearing none. The next speaker is Travis Luttrell. Mr. Luttrell, are you on the line?
Yes, sir. I heard you.
Yes, I heard you good. Thank you. Now, for the record, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. You may proceed at your convenience.
My name is Travis Luttrell, and I live on 4708 Charlie Taylor Road. Thank you for the opportunity to address this forum, and let me be the first to welcome the new developers to our neighborhood. We are excited to see what type of community we can build together. Growth and change are inevitable, but also must be transparent in order to balance the great ideas yet to come while incorporating the values of those of us who already live in this community, which is why residential zoning 4 is important. It protects rural property from urban sprawl, like placing a public school directly across the street from an agricultural business. Additionally, growth and change must be fully informed to address key assumptions and challenge any preconceived ideas, which is why I asked to speak about water management, water runoff, watershed, and the flooding of Charlie Taylor Road. This is a known issue by some and be fully understood by all, as it opens Plant City, Hillsborough County, and the developers up to a potential class action lawsuit. This issue identifies a key theme between jurisdictions. West of Charlie Taylor is Plant City. East of Charlie Taylor is Hillsborough County. My family and my neighbors have, over the past 4 years, called and tried to highlight the water runoff watershed issues on Berea land across Charlie Taylor Road along our property to get to the Ithaca Creek. When we call Hillsborough County, the county states it's not their problem. That's Plant City. When we call Plant City, they state water management is done by Swift Mud in Hillsborough County. When we call Swift Mud in Hillsborough County, they say there's nothing they can do about it because Berea is private property and taxes cannot be used to improve personal lands. After years of calling and dozens of car accidents, all the county did to fix the problem was to place signs along the road to caution drivers. Once a driver was hospitalized in 2019, the county finally brought out heavy equipment to deepen the drainage ditch on the west side of the creek. Why have we only called for the past 4 years and not longer? Because prior to that, a family lived across the street on Berea's property. And when the pond began to rise, that family pumped the water back into the natural preserve, and nature solved the issue. Thus, putting a proper water management in conjunction with natural habitat is part of the solution for flooding concerns. I wanted to bring this issue to your attention because I feel we need to keep the zoning of natural habitat in place. If we fill this land with asphalt for school parking lots, as well as concrete for apartments and commercial buildings, or whatever the market can bear, the city, county, and developers are hoping engineering models and flawless construction will prevent their liability. In my experience as a veteran, hope is not a strategy. The developers, along with the city and county engineers, should effectively manage this water using those natural preserves and nature. Conveniently flooding your neighbors across the street while intentionally or ignorantly putting your residents at risk to travel along Charlie Taylor's Road undermines the very type of community we're seeking to build. You have to increase the footprint to allow for more growth. We respectfully request that you please temper that growth by keeping residential floor and the natural preserve status on the zoning. This will address the assumptions that engineers can fix a problem nature has already solved and challenge the preconceived ideas that we need to change the zoning to create greater flexibility and clean up maps. When we
You need to conclude. You need to conclude, sir. You need to conclude. You're over limit.
Sorry, two more seconds. When we actually need to keep the zoning restrictions in place to provide clear accountability for flooding issues and protect existing rural neighborhoods and natural environments. Thank you for your time. I want this water issue to be a part of the public record and personally request the clerk include my concerns on any and all rezoning requests in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luttrell, for your thoughtful comments. Do board members have any questions for Mr. Luttrell? I will ask twice. Do board members have any questions for Mr. Luttrell? Thank you, board members. Hearing none, we'll proceed to the next speaker, which is Ms. Luttrell. Ms. Luttrell, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, good. Thank you. Good morning. Would you please state your name and address for the record? You also will have 3 minutes to make your presentation. You may proceed at your convenience.
My name is Lene Luttrell. I live at 4708 Charlie Taylor Road. My husband and I own an 18-acre horse boarding facility across from the 90 acres that is being discussed today. I believe that there are many ecological and logistical issues that make this rezoning recommendation a mistake. I've poured over everything that I could find online, but all the data from experts speaks to what is best for Plant City's growth, but does not seem to take into account the challenges that the current residents are facing. We are also your community, and we will be your neighbors, and we feel that we need to work together to address these issues before everything is accomplished. We feel that rezoning is not the answer. The Lower Green Swamp Nature Preserve is a huge accomplishment for the county, and it has quickly become a favorite trail for hikers and equestrians throughout Hillsborough and Polk counties. Many residents currently ride their horses down the side of the road to access these trails. Increasing development directly across from that trail entrance is a recipe for disaster. Roads will need to be widened. That is a fact. 2,600 homes at 2 cars apiece is roughly 5,200 cars. That doesn't even take account in the traffic that will be added when a school, apartments, and larger businesses are built right across from my house. One of the main entrances into Berea is located just south of my driveway. How are my boarders supposed to pull their horse trailers in and out with a never-ending stream of traffic zooming by? One of the future land use goals in Plant City's Imagine 2040 plan states that you want to manage growth and discourage urban sprawl, as well as reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Adding that much traffic to a rural community will do exactly the opposite of the very goal that you are promoting. We've been told that this development will bring many benefits, and in some ways that's true. Stantec has a beautiful community planned, and we believe that they have good intentions. Our property value will increase, but our property taxes will go up as well. Will the benefits of this development stop at their border? Internet, cell phone service, and electric service stability are currently deplorable. Living on the east side of Taylor Road, we are in a black hole when it comes to city versus county responsibility. Emergency response times are long. If we call 911, we get Polk County, who transfer us to Hillsborough County. The Imagine 2040 plan states that Plant City wants to ensure proper management and conservation of the natural environment and maintain and enhance environmental quality. There is an abundance of wildlife on Berea lands: deer, red fox, sandhill cranes, bald eagles, gopher tortoises, fox squirrels. Berea says that it wants to work in harmony with nature and maintain the old Florida feel, but dissolving natural preservation and R4 zoning will destroy nature, not embrace it. In closing, we understand that we cannot stop development. However, we are asking that they be forced to do it responsibly by building within the zoning allotments that they were already granted. Natural preserve and residential 4 zoning was put in place to protect current residents and Florida's habitat. And that is why we are urging the planning board not to put forth this rezoning recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Luttrell. Thank you, Ms. Luttrell. Appreciate your thoughtful remarks. Do the board members have any questions for Ms. Luttrell? I'll ask twice. Do board members have any questions for Ms. Luttrell? Okay, hearing no questions, I'll move on to the next speaker, which is Ms. Boynton. Ms. Boynton, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Very good. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, please state your name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. You can proceed at your convenience.
My name is Deborah Boynton. I live at 3939 East Knights Griffin Road, Plant City, Florida, 33565. I'd like to go on the record, not to belabor, but to just say that I concur both with Travis and Lene Luttrell. I also want to reiterate some of what they've brought up. Lower Green Swamp Preserve, wildlife management area right across the street, also used to be formerly a part of the Cone Ranch. That includes 13,000 acres, backing up, I think, to Green Swamp. I'd like to just have the members understand that not only will it impact our neighborhood, but it's also going to impact the wildlife management over there. Since we see all of those same animals just crossing the street right now off Knights Griffin. I understand there's going to be a fire department as a part of this. I'd like to ask if there's going to be an emergency medical services, because we are the last to receive them out here. And also like to know what the police response is going to be, since we actually fall underneath the county / Plant City Police Department. We've never seen an officer out here. Actually, I haven't, from Plant City, with several emergencies that were needed. I'd also like to bring your attention to an inordinate amount of flooding in watershed that will be an obstacle. And I'd like to know in the future how everybody is going to plan for. We have X zone property. I'm not sure if you're familiar with flood zone, but delineations of X, V, whatever, AE. Our property is flooding currently as in a response to lack of watershed done properly, I believe, and continued development. We have X zoning, which basically throws us into the 500-year flood zone. We've been flooding for the last 4 to 5 years. That's a major obstacle. I'd like to know how that's going to be addressed. And I think everyone here has discussed several great issues. I just want this to weigh on the elected officials as well as the employees of city and Hillsborough County, as everyone involved. Basically, it's your job to serve and protect us all, I think, and that's basically all we're asking for. We are taking steps to do flyover photos to document our water tables right now and how we are affected. So we are combining with Itchipacassassee Creek to just, try and fortify ourselves against poor planning and development. And that's all I'd like to have on the record.
Thank you, Ms. Boynton. You appreciate your thoughtful comments. I'll ask twice. Do board members have any questions for Ms. Boynton? Do board members have any questions for Ms. Boynton? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on to the next speaker, which is Charles Hollenkamp. Mr. Hollenkamp, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Thank you. Good morning. Please state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation. You can proceed at your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Charles Hollenkamp, 2921 Clubhouse Drive, Plant City, Florida. I want to address the possible land use changes at the corner of Knights and Charlie Taylor. The residents purchased this property in the rural area to escape the traffic and congestion that is quickly overtaking the city of Plant City. This area is 5 miles from the nearest traffic light and retail store. I keep a horse in this immediate area and regularly ride trail on the Lower Green Swamp Reserve. Also, consider the fact that the constant daily traffic of horse trailers coming in and out of the riding reserve could become dangerous for both riders and horses. It is a place where you can run your chainsaw to cut firewood or shoot a gun in your own pasture. Many days I see wild turkeys feeding out in the pastures, or maybe a deer or a fox. You are afforded these great basic privileges because you choose to live in the country. Now we are considering allowing someone to come in and change all of this in order to increase tax base. Flooding has also been a problem in the area, and Mud has their hands full controlling water flow through the Ichtapachi Creek. I feel construction will only exacerbate the problem. Sometimes we need to consider the effect our decisions have on this small group of neighbors and give it the same weight as the developers and contractors who are only in it for the profits they can take. Please analyze how your decision will change the country way of life out on Charlie Taylor Road. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Hollenkamp, for your thoughtful comments. I'll ask the board members twice. Are there any board members that have a question for Mr. Hollenkamp? Are there any board members that have a question for Mr. Hollenkamp? Okay, having heard no questions, we'll move to the next speaker, which is Mr. Domedian. Mr. Domedian, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Are you on the line? Mr. Domedian, are you on the line? I'll ask a third time. Mr. Domedian, are you on the line? All right, well, that concludes the comments. I'm going to assume Mr. Domedian chose not to stay on the line. Does either the staff or the applicant wish to respond or rebuttal? I did hear earlier comment. So Ms. Chadwick, you can proceed as you wish. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Just to address a few of the comments, we are in the process of working on engineering plans, and those engineering plans are vetted through the Hillsborough County EPC, the Water Management District for the entire area, Hillsborough County, and the City of Plant City. We're working closely with all of them. And so obviously drainage is one of those things that we look at. There are rules that require that we not make any situation worse. We can't send any more water offsite than what goes offsite right now. So, but our engineers are aware. I spoke to them the other day after Mark indicated some of the comments he had received, and I did make sure that they are aware of surrounding concerns. Someone made a comment about a fire station being here. That has not been decided at this point. I just want to put that out there. That doesn't mean we're not interested in talking with the city if they perceive that that's necessary here, but we can look at that. But at this point, it is not in the master plan. The school site has been vetted with the school board. As that is the potential location, and I will continue to say that's the potential location. They may even come at some point and say they don't need a school site. So we have to reserve land for them. We are required to do that. I think that's all I have. Oh, and the traffic study. The traffic study was a full traffic study was done with the 2015 zoning approval, and that traffic study still stands. It was reviewed by both Hillsborough County and the City of Plant City and approved, and improvements, those off-site improvements were identified, and unfortunately I don't have that in front of me, so I can't tell you what those are. In addition to that traffic study, with each phase of the project that comes in with construction plans, we will be required to do what's called an operational traffic study. And the purpose of that study is to look at turn lanes and entrances and is there a need for turn lanes, accel, decel lanes, that sort of stuff. So there's another layer of traffic study that will be coming on top of the one that was already approved. So with that, I'll leave it to questions if you have any questions for myself or Truett Gardner.
Thank you, Ms. Chadwick. Let me ask board members, do you have any questions of Ms. Chadwick, board members?
I have a question. This is Jeremy Burris.
Chair recognizes Jeremy Burris.
Ms. Chadwick, this is Jeremy Burris. I've got a question for you. In your rebuttal a moment ago, you mentioned, I want to make sure I understood you clearly. You said the watershed that's on the property now is not going to change the watershed in the future. Did I hear you say that correctly? Because my thought process is right now the watershed that's there, a lot of that water is going to go through the sand and the aquifer and drain below. When we go put miles of asphalt and concrete and roofs, the watershed's just going to roll off your property into other property. Did I hear you say that correctly? Let's make sure we were accurate on that.
Well, I'm speaking I'm a land use planner. I am not an engineer. So I need to be careful about what I say just because I am not licensed to do engineering work. What happens is when we do our engineering design, the requirements by water management, the city, whoever, do not allow for you to have more water leaving your site than what you have today. So that is something that will be reviewed to make sure that we have that data. And so any drainage that's warranted by our development must be retained on site and treated on site. And so to the point where we are not allowed to send any drainage off site beyond what is being sent off site today. Hope that clarifies it.
Thank you. So my question to you then is once we get rid of this 90 acres that's kind of suited for conservation, where are we going to roll that water off to? What's your thought process? What's the thought process if we get rid of this 90 acres? Where's that water going to go?
Well, first of all, that 90 acres is not set up for conservation. It is set up today for mixed use development and or for residential development. It is not set for conservation. There are a couple of there's a couple of small wetlands in there that are set up for conservation, and our proposal is to retain those wetlands. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Let me interrupt now. Mr. Dominion, in the meantime, has called in. He was having audio problems. Whoops, I think he just might have been disconnected again. Let me stand by a moment. Yeah. No, well, he's coming in and out, so he's out right at this moment. So let me go back to asking the board if they have any further questions of Ms. Chadwick. Board members, do you have any other questions for Ms. Chadwick? Yeah. Actually, I have a question, Ms. Chadwick. I heard a reference in one of the presenters to several thousand homes in Varela. Was that a mistake, or is there more to it than the 900 homes that are in this proposal in front of us?
The current plan development of Varela is entitled for the 345,000 square feet of commercial, 50,000 square feet of office, and 2,640 residential units. And that has been on the books for, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years. That was approved that long ago. I don't know the exact date of the original plan development approval, but at least since 2015 and a few years prior to that, that much development was approved on this 1,000 acres of Varela.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
I think Mr. Dominion is back on the line. I'm going to see if I can introduce him and give him 3 minutes. If he would please state his name and address. Are you there, Mr. Dominion?
I am. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Let me see. Audience, can you hear Mr. Dominion? Anyone speak up? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'm hearing some yeses. So please proceed, Mr. We kind of got you patched in here, Mr. Domitian. So bear with us. Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is George Domitian. I live at 4124 Swindell Road in Plant City. And I don't know any of those other people that spoke, but I concur with 99% of what they said. My concern is, besides the eagles and the gopher turtles and the owls and the flooding, I agree with all that. My concern is traffic. And I live on Swindell Road, very near the entrance of I-4 and County Line Road. And my concern is that all the traffic, number one, if you buy a piece of property and you know that it's zoned where you can build 500 houses, 531 dwellings, and 164,000 in commercial space, that's why you bought it knowing that. So to come later and try to change everything up and almost double your houses and almost quadruple your commercial space seems a little odd to me. But as far as the traffic goes, Swindell Road is a little country 2-lane road that is in disrepair all the time. Every time we get rain for a day or two, giant potholes form. The county just keeps coming in, putting patches on them. And it seems to me that the easiest way to get from Knights Griffin and Charlie Taylor is to come south on Charlie Taylor, cut across Swindell Road to get to County Line, to get on I-4, especially if anything you're doing is east of Plant City. Possibly if you're going west of Plant City, you may go over to Wilder or 39. But so the traffic is my biggest thing. And I think that before one shovel full of dirt comes out to build any number of houses, that some major traffic studies have to be done. Roads need to be improved. And, if we're going to have new neighbors, again, I'm not against development. I'm not crazy about it, because even though I'm so close to I-4, I consider myself in the country. But I'm all for growth. But before you build the houses, you have to redo the roads. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Domitian, for your thoughtful comments. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Domitian? I'll ask twice. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Domitian? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Domitian. Ms. Chadwick, before we conclude the public remarks, I'll give you a chance, one last chance to take a moment here. Maybe Mr. Domitian said something, or you have another thought. So do you wish to make further remarks, Ms. Chadwick?
Yes, I would just say I understand it's difficult when you're looking at something on paper, and it's difficult to say, oh, they're saying they're not going to increase. I understand that's a concern for residents. They will have the opportunity to see the plan again, with hopefully in July, maybe August, depending on what happens with COVID. So they can see that we are proceeding with exactly what we had before, and we do not propose to increase entitlements. We are, as Mr. Domitian said, living with what was purchased. We are living with that. The only reason for this amendment is to change a line so that the existing approved commercial entitlements can be accommodated on the site. That's the sole purpose of this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Chadwick. That will conclude our speaker part. So this hearing is closed. Now we'll go into discussion. Are there any board members that wish to discuss this matter? I will wait to hear from you. Any board members that wish to discuss this matter?
Hey, Art, this is Jeremy Burris.
Yes, Chair recognizes Mr. Burris.
I want to first start out by saying, in essence, of transparency, I grew up in this community that we're discussing. I knew when the Cone Ranch was there as a child. I know just about many of the people who live on Charlie Taylor Road, and I know far too well the flooding that occurs on Charlie Taylor and eastern side of Midway Road because of Itchapakasassa Creek and the watershed. And I'm just very concerned about increasing any type of adding more roofs, more roads, in terms of roads on this community. I'm just against it, just because I'm very concerned about anybody controlling the watershed on this property. Effect it's going to have on our community, not just with watershed, but with traffic. So that's just my concerns, and I'm just want to be very transparent. Again, I know the area very, very well. I know how it floods. I know how the traffic is right now, and I'm telling you, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to fix the roads, first of all, and the other challenge, the watershed. So that's just where I'm at with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Are there any other board members that want to speak or discuss this matter? I'll ask one more time, just in case there's any communication connections. Are there any board members that wish to discuss or speak on this matter? Okay, hearing none. What's the pleasure of the board? Would someone like to make a motion? And if they do, I'll need their name and to state the motion as well. So what's the pleasure of the board? Will there be a motion? Some of you may have to unmute your phones so that you can speak. Yeah. What's the pleasure of the board? Will someone make a motion? Please state your name and the motion as you speak. Are we even connected?
Art, we can hear you. This is Nick Thurston.
I hear you. I just think you got lack of emotion.
Okay. It's so weird here because I'm just looking at the screen and I don't have the, like Zoom, I can see who's actually connected or not, but I can't see it as I'm looking at a black hole. So is there a motion to approve or this recommendation from the staff?
Art, this is Nick Thurston.
Yes, sir.
You know, understanding that this was a lot of this was already voted on previously, as was pointed out. You know, I'd be comfortable making a motion to approve the proposal.
Okay, and that is and that the planning board found it consistent with the image 2040 Plant City Plan too.
Yes, sir.
So we have a motion from Mr. Thurston. Is there a second on the motion to approve?
This is Doug. I'll second.
Okay, a second from Doug Driggers. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Otherwise, I'm going to call for a vote and the clerk will do a roll call. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you proceed with a roll call?
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Here.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes or no?
Board
Member Burris, did you say yes? Are you voting yea or nay?
Oh, Jeremy Burris is here, and I vote no to the motion.
Okay. Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. We have vote passed 0, 1 nay.
Thank you, board members, and thank you, audience, for your participation and your thoughtful discussion. That concludes the item that it did pass, and we'll proceed with the next steps in the process. And as you know, there are many steps that will follow this. Thank you very much. The next order of business is sub-item B, which is known as PC/CPA 20-04, Future Land Use Map Amendment. This is a public hearing, and again, we have Mark Hudson on the line with the Planning Commission to present this item. Mr. Hudson, please state your name and address for the record. You may proceed at your convenience.
Again, this is Mark Hudson with the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, 601 East Kennedy Boulevard, County Center, 18th floor. With that, if the floor manager could bring up my PowerPoint, thank you. This is the second of two plan amendments for you to give us a recommendation on today. This one is signified by and identified by the number PC/CPA 2004. If I could go to the next slide. This shows you the location of the site. It is north of Interstate 4 on the west side of North Park Road, south of East Sam Allen Road, and east of North Maryland Avenue. Again, it is signified by the number PC/CPA 2004. This shows you the location of the site with the star on the map for Plant City, just north of a commercial activity center, which is the interchange of Park Road and Interstate 4. If I could have the next slide. This is an aerial of the site. The affected area is surrounded by the dashed lavender line. As you can see, it is on the west side of North Park Road, and it goes all the way east to North Maryland Avenue, just south of East Sam Allen Road. If you arrow went a little bit further to the north, you would see the beginnings of the proposed new neighborhood at North Park Isles. If I could have the next slide. By way of background, this is privately initiated. It is 18.2 acres. The current land uses on the site are commercial and residential 6, fairly evenly divided between the two. The applicant wants to increase the residential entitlements and has requested residential 20 or 20 dwelling units an acre. Next slide. As I mentioned just a moment ago, this is the adopted future land use map. As you can see, the area surrounded with the black dashed line is bifurcated between to the east with commercial land use designation, and to the west, a residential 6 land use designation. I could have the next slide. And if this was ultimately approved by the City Commission, it would change to this brown color, which represents residential 20. Next slide. I took a couple of photos of the area and also have some aerials to give you an idea of the character of the area. Predominantly, it's either in agricultural uses or a large lot of residential development right now. But you can see the site in question here looking north, signified by the red pin mark is in the center of the property. I can have the next slide. And this shows you some of the adjacent roadways. This one in particular is looking south on Park Road next to the site. Next slide. And this is looking south on North Maryland Avenue, which of course is a little bit to the to the west of North Park Road. Next slide. And this is looking east on East Sam Allen Road, a little bit to the north. The property doesn't actually abut this. There is one property to the south that separates the Apple area from the East Sam Allen Road. Next slide. And this shows you some homes that are currently built on North Maryland Avenue that is in proximity to the plan amendment site. Next slide. Now, again, as I said in the previous presentation, these are theoretical build-outs to give you an idea of potentially how this could develop out. The applicant may have further detail. It's already approved through a planned development district for 120 dwelling units. It also could be considered for up to 164,000 square feet of commercial office uses. If approved by City Commission, the entitlements for residential units would increase to 364 dwelling units, typically townhomes or multifamily development in this plan category. However, the commercial entitlements would decrease. They would not be eliminated, but they would be sustained to about 20,000 square feet of commercial office uses. Next slide. Our staff did review this as far as being consistent with the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. In particular, we looked at, and again, these goals, objectives, and policies are in their entirety in your packets. There are policies that encourage higher density residential uses in close proximity to commercial activity centers, which I've already noted that North Park Road and I-4 is one of those areas that are identified on the vision map. But in addition to that, we looked at neighborhood conservation, also policies dealing with enhanced hometown charm, which are noted here. I can have the next slide. And also policies related to growth management, the provision of public facilities, and also the provision of a variety of housing types, as noted on the slide. And we feel that these policies are consistent with those provisions. If I can have the next slide. This plan amendment is on the same track as the previous one. Next slide, please. These policies are on the same track as the previous plan amendment. We're here to get your recommendation today. Planning Commission will have a meeting, most likely virtual meeting on July 13th to contemplate the same recommendation. And then we have a transmittal hearing on August 10th where we would send that up to the Department of Economic Opportunity, directed by City Commission, with the projected final adoption hearing in front of the City Commission in October of 2020. This is the same timeline that has been established for the previous plan amendment as well. Just want to make that clear. Next slide. And with that, our staff, the Planning Commission, recommends PCCPA 2004 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Hudson? I'll ask again. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Hudson? Okay, hearing none. This is a public hearing. In the notice for this meeting, the public was advised to contact the city clerk at least 48 hours prior to the public hearing, should anyone wish to speak. Madam City Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Yes, Chairwood, we have Mr. Todd Taylor, the applicant, available. No other persons have requested to be heard for this public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Taylor, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am. My name is Todd Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thanks. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. You may proceed at your convenience.
Again, my name is Todd Taylor, and I am the applicant. Mark Hudson and his staff with the Planning Commission have done a wonderful job putting together the package. As you can tell, no one has called in to oppose the proposed land use that I've gone for. This property was rezoned to 180 townhouses and 1.2 acres of commercial back in 2006. Ordinance 9-2006, and it was approved by Plant City on 2006. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory in the packet as to what I'm trying to accomplish here. And through Mark's effort and his staff's effort, on a number of times it says it has, my change that I'm requesting has very little to no effect on the ability to establish this type of use. The proposed land use will only have a very small effect on overall transportation scenario. Since this property was originally zoned in 2006, Park was a 2-lane road, as was Sam Allen. As you're well aware of, Park is now 4-lane, and Sam Allen is in the process of being 4-lane. So the traffic concerns will be brought up once we submit for the modification for the rezoning. But it seems like there's adequate capacity on the streets right now to handle what I'm proposing to amend. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time and appreciate Mr. Hudson's effort in putting this all together.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Let me ask the board, I'll ask twice, just to make sure we have a good communication connection. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Taylor? Does the board have any questions for Mr. Taylor? Okay, thank you. There being no further speakers, this meeting is closed. Does any board member wish to discuss or express their opinion on this matter? Board members, if you speak, please state your name. I'll ask again, is there any board member that wishes to speak or discuss this matter? If you do, please state your name. Okay, hearing none, I'll proceed to the motion. What's the pleasure of the board? Is there someone that would like to make a motion? If you do so, please state your name.
This is Bonnie Carr. Move to approve and a consistent and comprehensive plan.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Bonnie Carr for the motion. Is there a second for the motion?
This is Doug Driggers. I second.
I second the motion.
I heard Doug Driggers with a second on the motion. Is that correct, Mr. Driggers?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So we have a motion by Bonnie Carr and a second by Doug Driggers. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I will ask the Madam City Clerk to please do a roll call. Thank you.
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Jeremy Burris?
Yes.
Bruce Rodwell? Bonnie Carr?
Yes.
Bruce
Bruce
Rodwell?
Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, everyone. We're going to now proceed to the next section of our agenda. This is going to require a swearing in, which is, we're going to have to take your word that you're raising your hand, but the next order of business is the swearing of staff and speakers for our quasi-judicial hearings. If you are a staff or a speaker for the upcoming plats, please be sworn in. Madam City Clerk, please proceed.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next order of business, as I mentioned, is the quasi-judicial hearings. The first case is sub-item A, PB 2019-12, Walden Woods Unit 6B, final plat. City staff, you may proceed. Please state your name and address and sworn in.
Thank you. Good morning, board members. This is Robin Baker, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Department, and I have been sworn in. Madam Clerk, can you please start the PowerPoint presentation? The request before you is a final plat for Walden Woods Unit 6B. Next slide, please. If approved, this plat will create a 149-lot single-family residential subdivision within the Walden Woods Industrial Plan Development District. The site is approximately 68 acres in size and is located at the northwest corner of East Alexander Street and Jim Johnson Road. The site is within the residential 12 future land use category, with small portions of the site being designated natural preservation. Next slide, please. The City Commission approved the most recent amendment to the Walden Woods Industrial Plan Development District on March 12, 2018. The preliminary plat was approved by the Planning Board on March 15, 2018. The applicant did request a waiver to the reclaimed water lines requirement as part of the preliminary plat. They recommended approval on April 12, 2018, and the City Commission approved the request on May 29, 2018. Construction plans were reviewed and approved on March 26, 2020, and construction is complete for the improvements, including roads, water, sewer, retention ponds, etc. Next slide, please. The graphic before you is kind of the overall sheet of the plat. Unfortunately, this particular plat is 20 pages long, and I didn't want to make you go through each page, but this is the overall site and what it looks like, and it shows each individual lot, as well as wetlands and recreational tracts. Next slide, please. Staff has reviewed the final plat for Walden Woods Unit 6B subdivision for consistency with the technical requirements of Chapter 94, Chapter 102, the Imagine 24 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 177, Part 1 of the Florida Statutes, and the Plant City Standard Guide Manual for Construction and Subdivision Development, and finds the plat to be consistent with the above requirements for a final plat. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Board find the Walden Woods Unit 6B final plat consistent with the above noted technical requirements, and for it to be forwarded to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Baker? I'll ask again. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Baker? Okay, hearing none, I'll move on. This is a public hearing. In a notice for this hearing, the public was advised to contact the city clerk at least 48 hours prior to the public hearing, should anyone wish to speak. Madam City Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Yes, Sherwood. We have Mr. Sean Cashin, Ms. Karen Lucas, and Mr. Joe Gattuso, representing the applicant available. Mr. Cashin will make a presentation, and both Ms. Lucas and Mr. Gattuso will be available for questions. No other persons have requested to be heard on this public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Cashin, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cashin. Please state your name, address, and that you've been sworn in. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. You can proceed at your convenience.
Thank you very much. I'm Sean Cashin, 13825 ICOP Boulevard, Clearwater, Florida. We are the engineer of record for this project. We also prepared the plat. I have nothing really to add to Ms. Baker's very thorough presentation of the project. It is a plat for 149 lots, and I'm open to any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Does the let me get my orientation here back again. Yeah. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Cashin? I'll ask again. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Cashin? Thank you. The second speaker, I'm not sure if she is on the line because that's what I was just checking on. We heard from a Karen Lucas. Is there a Karen Lucas on the line? Yeah.
Karen Lucas is my project engineer. She worked on this project, but she is not on the line.
Okay, and then anything she would have said has been dealt with. Is that correct, Mr. Cashin?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
So we'll proceed to Mr. Gattuso. Are you on the line, Mr. Gattuso? Yeah. Mr. Gattuso, are you on the line? It's Joe Gattuso. Are you on the line? Well, apparently not. So that will close the, bringing no further speakers, that will close the hearings. We'll move on to discussion. Is there any board member that wishes to discuss this matter? I'll repeat, any board member that wishes to discuss this matter? Okay, hearing no discussion, what's the pleasure of the board? Will someone state their name and make a motion?
This is Jeremy Burris. Mr. Wood, I make a motion to approve PB 2019-12 as it's consistent with our city 2040 plan.
Thank you, Mr. Burris. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Bonnie Carr. I second.
I heard Bruce Rodwell as well, so I'm going to let Mr. Rodwell claim that. So a second by Bruce Rodwell. Yeah. Is there any discussion of the motion? Any further discussion of the motion? I'll ask any further discussion of the motion. Okay, we'll move on to a vote. Madam City Clerk, we take a roll.
Chair Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Burris,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers, Board Member Driggers, did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Jones,
Yes.
Board Member Thurston,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes 7-0 vote. Okay.
Thank you all
Next
very
order of
much.
business is PB 2020-08, Shannon Estates preliminary plat. This is still another quasi-judicial hearing. City staff will proceed with the presentation. Please state your name and address and that you've been sworn in. Please proceed.
Thank you. Again, Robin Baker, Senior Planner, Planning and Zoning Department, and I have been sworn in. Madam Clerk, could you start the PowerPoint, please? The request before you is a preliminary plat for Shannon Estates. Next slide, please. If approved, this plat will create a 23-lot single-family residential subdivision within the R1A zoning district. The site is located on the east side of Shannon Avenue, south of Spencer Street, and north of East Cherry Street. The site is within the residential for future land use category, but at 12.88 acres, the proposed subdivision would have a density of only 1.82 units per acre. The smallest proposed lot size is 75 feet by 129 feet, which is 9,675 square feet, which is larger than the required 7,500 square foot required by the R1A zoning district. Next slide, please. This is a larger version of the plat that shows the lot layout. Next slide, please. A waiver from providing reclaimed water is being requested. The Utilities Division had objections to the waiver request, noting that though reclaimed water is not currently available to the site, the city has plans to extend its current service and would like this subdivision to be ready to connect when this extension happens. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, a preliminary plat is a draft proposal by a property owner and/or developer, which is reviewed by staff and the planning board. The purpose of a preliminary plat is for the city to provide the developer direction in the early stages of the development prior to a lot of resources being expended on the project. Next slide, please. Additionally, as part of this request, the City of Plant City has requested a 50-foot easement along the eastern boundary of the site in order to expand options for a multi-use trail. You can see that area shown on the graphic there in green. The applicant has requested further meetings to discuss this easement, and if an agreement can be reached, this easement will be required to be shown on the construction plans and final plat. Next slide, please. Staff has reviewed the preliminary plat and associated waiver for Shannon Estates for consistency with the technical requirements of Chapter 94, Chapter 102, and the Imagine 24 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends the Planning Board find the preliminary plat for Shannon Estates consistent with the technical requirements noted above, and recommends approval of the preliminary plat, and recommends the waiver be forwarded to the City Commission with a recommendation of denial. Thank you. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions for Ms. Baker? I'll ask again. Does the board have any questions for Ms. Baker?
Art, this is Art. I'm sorry. This is Nick Thurston.
Yes, sir.
Can Robin just
Please
reiterate?
proceed, Mr. Thurston.
Thank you, Art. I appreciate it. Can Robin just reiterate the waiver, the specifics behind the waiver, and then the denial, just so I clearly understand it?
Sure, Robin Baker. Essentially, the code gives the applicant the option to request a waiver to the requirements to connect to reclaimed water. Currently, the city does not have existing lines adjacent to the project for them to just be able to connect to. It's more than 100 feet away, so the applicant requested a waiver to that requirement. But during the review, the city, established the fact that we have a vision and a plan to expand that reclaimed water network that would eventually get to the cemetery that's just to the north of the site. And there's several subdivisions in the area adjacent to this site that were required to install what we refer to as dry lines. So they basically have to install the lines there, and then once the city does expand its network, then at that time they would connect those lines that are already in place to that network to supply reclaimed water to the site. So that is why the city utilities department recommended denial of the waiver request, and hopes that in the future, as we expand, the subdivision would be able to connect to that system.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you, Mr. Thurston. I'm going to move on. This is a public hearing. In the notice for this meeting, the public was advised to contact the city clerk at least 48 hours prior to the public hearing, should anyone wish to speak. Madam City Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Yes, Chairwood. We have Mr. Steve Boggs representing the applicant available. No other persons have requested to be heard for this public hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Boggs, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am.
No, thank you. Mr. Boggs, would you please state your name, address, that you've been sworn in? You'll have 5 minutes for your presentation. Please proceed at your convenience.
Steve Boggs, Boggs Engineering. I'm the representative for the development. I'm located at 607 South Alexander Street, Plant City, Florida, and I've been sworn in. To make this very concise, we agree with the staff's approval of it. We would have liked to have seen a approval of the waiver. However, without a time frame for the extension causes us a little concern, but we will accept that and place a dry line system in the subdivision to move on. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions? Yes, sir.
One other thing.
Continue.
Yes. We have not had any discussions regarding the requested easement on the east side of the property. But in general, the owner is acceptable to it, but that will take place once we start or get past the preliminary plat.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Boggs? I do have a question myself, Mr. Boggs. I've heard a developer at one point state that putting a dry line in can be hazardous because if it stays in the ground empty long enough, you can't connect to it, even if it takes too long to get the reclaimed water to it. Can you comment on that situation? Yeah.
I know that they put it into the, I can't remember the name of the subdivision that is east of us, but typically these lines will be in there. It's going to be irrigation lines, so it's nothing we have to worry about as far as the drinkability of it or the cleanliness of it. You do have a higher possibility of the lines being damaged just because of homeowners digging where they shouldn't be digging or contractors. But in the most part, you're outside of any type of degradation from sunlight or anything else. So generally they should be good for a good 10, 15 years.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Boggs? I'll ask one time more. Does the board members have any questions for Mr. Boggs? There being no further speakers, this hearing is closed. Is there any board member that wishes to discuss the matter or state their opinion? Is there any board member that wishes to discuss this matter or state their opinion? Okay, hearing none. What's the pleasure of the board? Please remember to state your name as you make the motion. What's the pleasure of the board?
This is Bonnie Carr. I recommend approval, stated by, or recommended by staff, finding it consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Doug Driggers. I'll second.
I heard Bruce Rodwell first, so I'm going to claim the motion, the second to him. So we have a motion by Bonnie and a second by Bruce Rodwell to approve. Is there any further discussion of the motion?
This is Jason Jones. Does the motion include the denial for the waiver?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yeah. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please proceed with a roll call?
Chair Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Burris,
Yes.
Board Member
Board Member
Rodwell?
Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Jones,
Yes.
Board Member Thurston.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. The motion passes 7-0. We have so many electronics in front of me, we have to jiggle them around, so bear with me. Thank you very much. The next order of business is PB 2020-16, the Tillman Business Center final plat. This is also a quasi-judicial hearing. Then the city staff will do the presentation. Please begin by stating your name, address, and that you've been sworn in.
Good morning, board members. This is Marlene Sanchez, planner with the Planning and Zoning Division, and I have been sworn in. Madam Clerk, if you'll present my slides. Next slide, please. PB 2020-16 Tillman Business Center final plat is a request for a final plat creating a 45-lot subdivision on approximately 4 acres located off Tillman Place within the Walden Woods Industrial Plan Development District. Next slide, please. In 2007, the project started being developed with site plan approval by staff. The project consisted of multiple buildings being built on one parcel, which did not require platting. Construction of the infrastructure, which included roads, water, and sewer, were completed before the real estate market collapsed
and the project stalled. The developer has restarted the project in the same design, but now intends to subdivide and sell the individual building parcels, which requires platting. Next slide, please. This slide shows the plat. Next slide, please. Staff has reviewed the final plat for Tillman Business Center subdivision for consistency with the technical requirements of chapters 94 and 102 of the Plant City Code of Ordinances, the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, chapter 177, part 1 of the Florida statutes, and the Plant City Standard Guide Manual for Construction and Subdivision Development, and finds the final plat to be consistent with the above requirements for a final plat. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Board find the Tillman Business Center final plat consistent with the above noted technical requirements and for it to be forwarded to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Board members, do you have any questions of Ms. Sanchez? Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Sanchez? We'll move on to public hearing. In the notice of this hearing, the public was advised to contact the city clerk at least 48 hours prior to the public hearing, should anyone wish to speak. Madam City Clerk, did anyone contact your office to speak at this public hearing?
Yes, Chair Wood. We have Mr. Don Testa representing the applicant available. No other person have requested to be heard for this public hearing.
Mr. Testa, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Mr. Testa, please state your name, address, and that you've been sworn in. You'll have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please proceed at your convenience.
Okay. Yeah, Donald Testa, 13701 North Nebraska Ave, Tampa. Basically, everything that was put in the presentation is correct, and I just ask that we pass the plating.
You get the record for the shortest. Yeah. Is that all, Mr. Testa?
Yes, that's all. Thank you.
All the work went into it already, right? Yeah. Does the board members have any questions for Mr. Testa? Does the board have any questions for Mr. Testa? Okay, there being no further speakers, this meeting is closed. This hearing is closed. Does the board member, any board member wish to discuss the matter or give an opinion? Yeah. Does any board member wish to discuss the matter or give an opinion? Hearing none, we'll proceed. What's the pleasure of the board? Would someone like to state their name in the form of making a motion?
This is Jason Jones. I will make a motion to approve the final plat for the Tillman Business Center, PB 2020-16.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second for Mr. Jones' motion?
This is Doug Driggers. I'll second.
Okay, we have a second for Mr. Driggers. So we have a motion by Jason Jones and a second by Doug Driggers. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll ask the Madam Clerk to please place a roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. Record the vote.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Mr. Testa.
Thank you.
We'll now proceed to other business. The first item is a resolution, and this is a resolution authorizing the chair, which right now is me, with consultation of the city manager and city attorney to decide whether a future meeting is to be held virtually or in person. and requesting the city manager to establish appropriate protocols for in-person public hearings. This was all done in anticipation of matters not being so simple that come before us and how much difficulty there is in conducting a virtual meeting. So I will turn the speaker over now to our city attorney, Mr. Buckman, who will explain the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In order to give the planning board the most amount of flexibility in responding to this COVID-19 situation, which is constantly changing, I prepared a resolution which authorizes the chair, in consultation with city manager and city attorney, to decide as to whether a meeting will be in person or virtual. It really is best to be decided by the board or through its chair, as opposed to having staff make that decision. The resolution also requests the city manager to establish safety protocols, examples like sign-in sheets, recommendations regarding social distancing, etc. Under the resolution, depending on the anticipated crowd, we may have some meetings which may be in person or they may be virtual. The resolution also accepts the procedures for conducting the virtual meetings adopted by the City Commission. All of this assumes that the governor's executive order, which allows for virtual meetings, will be extended. I do believe that's going to happen. But obviously, if he doesn't extend it, then we're going to have live meetings. But a similar resolution was adopted by the City Commission and the CRA Monday night, and by the Board of Adjustment yesterday. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Clearly, the intent here is that some of these events, some of these meetings could be just not done virtually, principally because of controversy or public opinion or issues like that. So this, although we're giving out some authorization, I can assure you it will be handled with great discretion. Yeah. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Buckman? Does the board have any questions for Mr. Buckman? Hearing none, would any board member like to discuss this matter or express an opinion on it? Is there any board member that wishes to discuss this matter or express an opinion? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask what is the pleasure of the board. Will someone make a motion? If you do, please state your name for the record.
This is Bonnie Carr. I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Bonnie Carr to approve. Is there a second to the motion?
Nick Thurston, I'll second.
The chair recognizes Mr. Rodwell as making the second on that motion. So we have a motion and a second to adopt a resolution that deals with the consultation of the city manager on establishing whether a future meeting should be held virtually or in person. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I will ask the Madam Clerk to please call the roll.
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. Recording the vote.
For the record, the item passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Yeah. Next item of business is an annual process. We have election of officers. We have 2 positions that are filled by nominations. So I will ask, are there any names you'd like to place a nomination for the chair position? Please state your name as you make the nomination.
This is Bruce Rodwell. I nominate Art Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Rodwell.
This is.
Are there any other names? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you accepting seconds or just names for nomination?
At this point, I'm asking if there's any other names for the run for the chair position to be nominated for chair. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I will accept, and I'm greatly honored. I think I'd like a motion to elect me as chair. Will someone make the motion, please?
This is me.
I'll make the motion to make you the chair of our group.
Okay.
This is Bonnie Carr, second passion.
Bonnie Carr, second. Any further discussion? Okay. Bonnie made the motion, and no, I'm sorry, Bruce. No, I'm Bonnie Carr seconded the motion to nominate Art Wood as chair, and we have to call roll again, I guess. Yeah. Would the Madam Chair please call roll? Yeah.
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes. Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. Record the vote.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm motion passes 7-0. I'm really honored. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, I'll do everything I can to run the job as well as I can. Thank you. We also have the position of vice chair, which we fill by nominations. So I'll ask for nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate Jeremy Burris.
Who was that?
This is Nick
Mr.
Thurston.
Thurston?
This is Nick
Okay,
Thurston. Yep. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations besides Mr. Thurston's for vice chair? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the nominations. I'll ask for a motion to vote on to have maybe Mr. Thurston, you probably want to proceed with the motion to nominate Jeremy Burris as vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, I do. I'd like to proceed with the motion to elect Mr. Burris as our vice chair.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Yeah.
This is Jason Jones. I will second it.
I'll second it.
Okay, I heard a second from Jason Jones. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, we'll do a roll call in a moment to nominate for vice chair position Jeremy Burris. Madam Clerk, please proceed with roll call.
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Yes. Thank you.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Burris. The motion passes 7-0. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Next item of business is the attendance report. Mr. Rodwell was absent for our February 12th meeting. He did notify staff in advance that he would be unable to attend. So I'm looking for a motion to excuse Mr. Rodwell's absence. Again, please remember to state your name as you make the motion. Is there a motion?
I move for approval to accept the absence of Bruce Rodwell.
Thank you. We have a motion by Bonnie Carr. Is there a second to the motion?
This is Doug Driggers. I'll second.
We have a second by Doug Driggers. So we have a motion by Bonnie Carr and a second by Doug Driggers. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chair Wood?
Yes.
Board Member Burris?
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell?
Yes.
Board Member Carr?
Yes.
Board Member Driggers?
Yes.
Board Member Jones?
Yes.
Board Member Thurston?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Is there any other business to come before the group? If anyone wants to make a comment on these virtual meetings. I appreciate hearing from you. But is there any other business, any other comments anyone wants to make? I don't hear anything. That's we're going to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Art.
Great job, Art.